So we'll be launching hopefully by next week, a software that is web based, that is a screener, and that screener will enable every child and every employee to do an online screener that will go to the campus principal of its students, and that will go to supervisors if they're employees, and it will send reminders to families and to employees on a daily basis to complete the screener, because no employer or no student will be allowed to come to work or school unless they've completed the screener. The screener is going to require the students or their families on behalf of the student or our employees to answer a few questions related to any symptoms they've been experiencing, as well as to enter their daily temperature before they come to work or school. So that's the first protocol. When they get to campus, depending on the logistics determined by the layout of the campus, there will be very specific protocols for where students will enter, where they will go, how they will be grouped, and then when they get into the classroom, all risk mitigation protocols are going to be strictly followed: 6 foot distancing, PPE being worn by everybody, hand sanitization, frequent disinfection of high touch areas. The things that we've been doing since March, the things that our employees have been doing, our teaching staff since they've returned, are what our students are going to be doing uh, every day. And before they get to school, if they ride the bus, they will also be riding buses that have been sanitized before they get on the bus. They'll be hand sanitizing before they get on the bus. They'll be wearing masks. They'll be sitting in individual seats with windows down or cracked. Depending on temperature, will determine the number of windows, but they'll be distanced and protected on the buses as well. And as we showed during a previous Facebook Live, we do have a very, very comprehensive reentry protocol for every aspect of the operation of running a school and a school district. That includes all of our departments and staff as well. Another thing that I want to mention about that is it's going to be one thing to get kids into our buildings. It's going to be a more important thing to keep kids in our buildings. And so what we've been really working hard on is ensuring that the risk mitigation protocols are followed faithfully. Because what we have learned is that COVID-19 will show up. But when we contact trace and we work with Metro Health, if we have guaranteed that the risk mitigation protocols were followed, then the impact is very minimal. In fact, when we've done that in our district in those cases, we don't shut anything down, and very few people have to be isolated or quarantined other than the exposed or infected person. And we believe that that's going to be the same thing that's going to happen in our schools, as long as we can guarantee that we follow those risk mitigation protocols faithfully. And so, as I've indicated before, it's non-negotiable. It's non-negotiable for staff. It's non-negotiable for students. And we have provisions for the littles to give them multiple options to find age-appropriate PPE that's going to work for those children in our buildings. And preliminarily, we've had some success with a small number of students that we've been able to bring into our buildings this week, that they were even able to wear PPE and distance and sanitize their hands and follow directions. And obviously it's a little more challenging, the younger children are, but it works and it can be done. And this is the strategic learning and safe reentry plan that I referred to earlier. And you may want to scroll through a couple aspects of that, Brandon. That's up to you.
Sorry about that. We had a little bit of an issue bringing that on. But yeah, you can find this reentry plan again, or a standalone website dedicated for all back to school resources at ecproud.com. That's ecproud.com. And then the safety, the reentry plan here is it's quite expansive. It's 37 pages. And then let me see if I can go down to, just some of the protocols and timelines. Talks about prevention measures, screening and protocols, guidance if exposed to COVID-19, whether it's faculty, staff, or students or caregivers. What happens if there is a COVID-19 positive diagnosis? And talks about social distancing, the types of PPE that are going to be available. I know Mr. Toscano. I got a couple questions already in the chat. About face masks. They're required, right? I mean, the students are required. Everybody's required to wear a face mask. What happens if a student is refusing to take off their mask? We've addressed it before, but
yeah, they'll unfortunately be choosing remote instruction for the year. But there are a few exceptions to that in circumstances where children have some health related conditions. But even in those cases, we found some alternative options to include desk carrels, splash guards, face shields, and different kinds of masks that aren't as irritating or uncomfortable. So far, we've been able to find a solution for every circumstance to ensure that we can follow those risk mitigation protocols. And again, those protocols not only prevent the probability that we're going to have an outbreak with COVID-19, but more importantly, when COVID-19 shows up, because it's not a matter of if it's going to happen, it's a matter of when. That we can really minimize the impact by following these protocols on the front end. And that's the most important part. That's the message we've been conveying to staff. That's the message that we'll be conveying with students is, regardless of whether you're concerned about yourself or not, it's the entire school district. It's all of the students and staff in your classes and in your schools that matter the most. And so we want to make sure that as we bring kids in, that we keep them in our buildings.
And a couple other things I just want to piggyback off of this in the chat. I mean, there are some people saying, "Can you guarantee that the kids will, be 100% safe?" And I mean, you can. You can only mitigate the risk. Is that correct?
Yeah, we can mitigate the risk. There's definitely no 100% guarantee. We're all looking at the same data. We've been looking at paying attention to the Metro Health dashboard we looked at earlier, and the metrics that dashboard is tracking are the same metrics that are recommended by the CDC, by Johns Hopkins, by Harvard, all of the big epidemiologists and health organizations recommend those same metrics. But I'll also say that we've dug into zip code data. If you go to the same dashboard that we've shared tonight, a little further down on that website, you can search by zip code and you can see the number of positive cases by zip code. We have 4 zip codes here in the East Central community, and those 4 zip codes have positivity rates of 3%, 3%, 1%, and 1%. And we've definitely read a lot of information about how reliable are the metrics, how reliable is the data, and what we know are the number of positive cases that are reported. We know the number of deaths that are reported, and so if you look at the population of Bexar County, there's a little over 2 million residents, and there are about 45,000 positive cases. If you divide 45,000 by a little over 2 million, you get a positivity rate that looks very different than what's on the dashboard. The dashboard's showing a 9.9% positivity rate in Bexar County, but it's actually, that positivity rate is determined by the number of people who actually tested. It's not determined by all in Bexar County being tested. And so, we understand that there's limits to what the data tells us, but we're taking a very conservative approach to ensure that everybody is safe and that we can assure to the degree possible that everybody is safe. But in addition to that, for any parents that are still not certain and uncomfortable, and our surveys indicate as many as half of you, we, as you hopefully have seen, have stood up a very different remote learning model than what you experienced in the spring. And I can only promise you that it's going to get better. And so if you choose remote only, my recommendation to you is make sure that your child just has someone to proctor or assure that they're following their daily schedule. and that they're connected. We'll provide the instruction, we'll provide the support, we'll provide everything your child needs to make academic progress. You don't have to be a homeschool parent.
Right. And a lot of these things, and again, you mentioned the survey, Mr. Toscano, what was it, 8,100 folks out of 9,000, I think you said somewhere is the enrollment. So, and out of those, 50% wanted to choose a remote, or I'm sorry, 50% wanted to choose a face-to-face return. So we're talking, about 4,000 students. 4,000 students that want a face-to-face return district-wide. And then, the other half can choose remote, and they can stay remote, right? You're giving them the option to stay remote, pretty much through the year.
Yeah, and I also think it's worth pointing out why 50% is why I mentioned 50% earlier. Backfilling our face-to-face numbers up to 50%, and in hopes of being able to stay in a schedule like that the remainder of the year, while making sure that anybody that wants to be here face-to-face can be here face-to-face, and those that really absolutely need to be here for a host of reasons face-to-face can be here face-to-face. Because when we assessed all of our spaces in all of our buildings, and we measured out what was required for risk mitigation, particularly in terms of distancing, we landed on 50% being the threshold. If we fill our buildings with more than 50% of the students that are enrolled in those buildings, we're going to have a harder time assuring that we can keep kids distance, that we can keep kids in, not gathering in large groups, that we can keep kids apart from one another and not in proximity for, more than 15 minutes. And so, we can't guarantee with 100% certainty, but we can give a high degree of assurance that we know what the risk mitigation protocols are. We've programmed for it. We've been very thoughtful about every detail, and the expectation and the standard has been set, and it is non-negotiable for staff and students. And so we're going to do the very best we can to make sure that my child's safe, that your child's safe, and that your spouse and that your family who work in the district are safe. And we're going to respond to the Metro Health data. If it seems to trend in the other direction, then we're going to regress and retreat. But right now, it's trending in a very positive direction. And while we can introduce up to 50%, we're essentially only introducing what's going to be about 25% of our students in this next phase on any given day. So we feel like we're being responsible to our citizens who need to get back to work and our students who need to be served face-to-face. But we're also being responsible and conservative as it relates to the public health metrics.
Yeah, and again, the reentry plan is available at ecproud.com. And it's quite elaborate. Like I said, it's 37 pages. Even down to procedures for cafeteria, meals, library, water fountain procedures. It goes into great detail, about what happens if there is a suspected case of COVID, if there is a confirmed case of COVID. And I'm saying that because some of the questions I'm noticing in the chat can be addressed. Just like I said, go through the procedures, and again, it's right there on the website ecproud.com. Go to reentry plan, and it has everything. You have done such a tremendous job, Mr. Toscano, and everybody here at the district, of trying to, again, going back to mitigating the risk, and trying to lower the risk as much as possible.
And I also, Brandon, want to add that if anybody on this call has not seen this and you take a look at it and you see some things that you have questions about, or you have some recommendations, some feedback, please send it our way. There are talk to us tabs on most pages on our website. We have people monitoring those tabs on a daily basis. That's a quick way to get feedback to us, so that we can do some research and make some adjustments if we need to. We posted this online and pushed it out to our community for more than a month, and I think we received close to 600 pieces of feedback and questions, and really helped us to refine and improve this document, which ultimately helped us to refine and improve our risk mitigation protocols. And so this is a community effort. This is something that we all have a stake in, and that we all have the ability to contribute to. So please give us your feedback, push our thinking. We want to do the best we can, and we know that all of us are smarter than some of us, and certainly than one of us.
Come on, come on, Mr. Tiscott. All right.